A very good morning to my dear students of class 8. In our today's class, my students, we will talk about the rest portion of chapter 9. And our first point is the permanent settlement. Lord Cornwallis, the Governor General of Bengal, introduced the permanent settlement in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa on 22nd March 1893. Later, Banaras, Northwest Province and some places of the Madras Presidency also came under it. The system had two special features: permanent ownership of land and fixed revenue. According to this system, it was decided that zamindars would be permanent owners of the land. They must deposit their revenue within a specified time, else they would have to sell off the zamindari or parts of it to pay the dues. Clear? Revenue would not be written off even if there is a natural disaster. The company had its own interest or benefits in mind while introducing the permanent settlement. It hoped the new policy would ensure payment of revenue within a fixed time and at a fixed rate. Cornwallis hoped that permanent ownership would encourage zamindars to invest capital on land and thus develop agriculture. The country would progress and help the company in the long run. The permanent settlement had its demerits also. This settlement made the zamindar the proprietor of the land and the farmer a mere tenant. The zamindar had the right to collect revenue from tenants, evict them, and exploit and torture them for more rentals at will. There was no way to check these misdeeds of the zamindar. Ramesh Chandra Datta, a famous historian, held the permanent settlement responsible for farmers' miseries. This led to widespread poverty and misery of the cultivators. Now come to our next point, that is the Raithwari system. Alexander Reed and Sir Thomas Munro introduced the Raithwari system in the Madras Presidency. It established a direct contact between the government and the farmer. Farmers directly paid revenue to the government, with no middleman being involved. They had no ownership right on the land. They simply enjoyed occupancy right. Revenue rates were high and revised every 3 decades. Next point is the Mehalwari system. In 1822, the Mehalwari system, similar to the Zamindari system, was introduced in Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Delhi region. According to this policy, a few villages formed a mahal or taluk and one or a few persons together paid the revenue and held lease of the land. Revenue rates were revised periodically. The zamindar received only 20% of the revenue and 80% went to the government. Later, the government's share was much reduced. Students, let's come to our next point, that is the commercial policy. In the 17th and 18th century, India, rich in industries, was the factory of the world. Bengal used to export cotton, silk, woolen garments, raw silk, sugar, salt, etc. The muslin from Dhaka had a huge market abroad. Apart from Bengal, other notable cotton centers were Varanasi, Lucknow, Agra, Multan, then Surat, Bangalore, Visakhapatnam, Madura, etc. Indian goods made of gold, silver, iron and copper were well known. By 17th and 18th centuries, shipbuilding industry in India made a name for itself. The centers were Goa, Basin, Surat, Masulipatam, Dhaka, and Chittagong. Indian goods, being thus popular in markets abroad, were a big boost for the Indian industry. At the beginning of the 18th century, the British and other European countries passed laws which prevented the entry of cotton and silk textiles from India, even though there was a demand for it. Thus, foreign markets for Indian goods virtually disappeared. Company's relationship with India underwent a change after the Battle of Plassey in 1757. As a stronger political power, it started controlling business and economy of this country. It drove away other European merchants from Bengal and stopped all Indian wholesale traders from coming to Bengal. The company and its employees enjoyed trading monopoly over most commodities produced in Bengal. They forced local weavers and others to produce goods for them at rates cheaper than market prices. According to Dadabhai Naoroji, the British drained wealth out of India through their economic policy. Wealth was drained to England in the form of salaries for British officials, transport of material resources, etc. Sums of money as bribes and gifts also were sent out of the country. Now, let's talk about the transport and communication. The British realized the importance of developing proper communication facilities to consolidate their position in India and promote their industrial and commercial growth. For this, the British linked important centers and towns with elaborate networks of roads, canals, etc. The first railway line was inaugurated in 1853 from Bombay to Thane by Lord Dalhousie. The Post and Telegraph Department was also opened in the same year. The Grand Trunk Road was reconstructed. The transport and communication system, however, would ultimately benefit Indians in unexpected ways. It brought the people of India closer to one another and infused in them the sense of unity and nationalism.